back. Your next 7 Caillou challenge is called Spoonerize Me. They go on to explain a spoonerism is a spoken phrase in which the first letters of 2 of the words are swapped around, often with amusing results. Consider this not picking. It goes to pot nicking, right? You took the first letter of the second word and swapped it out with the first letter of the first word. So that's how you got to pot nicking. And so you are to implement this Spoonerize function. They'll give you a string containing exactly 2 words. I'll error check that, but it's up to you if you want to do that. And then do exactly what we just said. Swap the first letters of each word around and then return the result. Pretty straightforward. They go on to talk about how spoonerisms can happen with longer sequences of words where you had 3 words here, pack of lies goes to lack of pies, and more complicated ones where instead of just the first letter, you'll take the FL, to get bat, flattery, but you don't have to worry about any of that. Just take the first letter, that's it. Nice and simple. We'll keep it simple for 7 Caillou, and I think you know what to do at this point, so go ahead and pause me. Come on back when you're ready. We'll get into this. So what I'm going to do is, I did mention, right, that I'm going to go ahead and enforce that there's exactly 2 words, so we'll check for that. And the way I'm going to do that, which is also helpful to solving the challenge, is that I'm going to use strings split method, where we can sort of tokenize a string based on some delimiting character. In this case, it'll be a space, right, because spaces separate words. But if you had a comma-separated variable file, maybe you would split them on commas to get all the pieces of data. But here, we want the space, so we'll do that. And so I could say string array. Feel free to look up string split if you want to see the documentation on that. In fact, we will look at it. I'll say string array words. It should be 2 of them. And I can take the input, and string has this split method where I give it the character to split on, which is a space. And so now when I do this, if there are only 2 words, right, the size of my array should be 2. If it's size 1 or 3 or 12, then we have a problem, right? So we could say something like if words.length is not equal to 2 exactly, I'll just throw new argument exception and give a meaningful message. You did not provide exactly 2 words, and I'll show what the problematic string was. This should never hit in this challenge if they make good on their promise, which they do, but it's good practice, right? This is a nice way of enforcing that once you actually go to work on data, that it meets certain criteria, certain expectations that you have of it. And so now I can safely assume there are 2 words, and it becomes pretty easy. So how do we get individual letters? Well, remember that strings under the hood are just arrays of characters, and so we can index letters that way. So if I wanted the first letter of the second word, let's think about this. We're going to have 2, and their indices would be 0 and 1. 0 would access the first word, 1 would access the second. So if I want to access the first letter of the second word, let's access the second word first. Remember, in computer science, we use 0-based indexing, so 1 is actually the second element. So don't be confused by that. And we know that this expression right here corresponds to a string, right? Because I should have words. Because words is an array of strings, if I grab any individual element from it, it's just a string. And so when I have that, if I want the first character in that string, we know that with character arrays, I can just index right into them in a similar way. And so this will actually pull the first character out of that second word. And I want to combine this with the rest of the first word, right? I want to skip the first letter of the first word. So I could say words 0, right? Gives me the first word, but we don't want that first character. We want to skip the first one and take everything else. And so if you remember, string has a substring method, very handy. with 2 overloads here. This one's nice. They let you say how many characters you want to grab from the starting point. We don't need that. We're just going to take everything, right? We just want to skip the first and take everything else. So I'll use this overload, and feel free to look at that all you like. It returns a string. You just give it the starting index, and it gives you all the characters after that. So I'll go and say, obviously we want to start at position 1, right? We want to skip position 0 to skip the first letter. And when I say 1, it means start at index 1 and take everything else, because I'm not specifying that second length property, right? We don't want to do that. We want to take everything. So good. This bit right here, this expression then would be the first part. So let's look at the example they gave us. Consider str is equal to not picking. What I have highlighted here would correspond to nicking, right? Or no, I'm sorry, it would be the pot. I'm sorry, pot. We said words 1. We just grabbed the first letter. We grabbed the P from picking, and then we put it with the OT from ot. So we got pot at this point with everything I have highlighted. Sorry about the confusion there. So now we got to get the nicking part. So I'll take this and add it to, and if you don't like kind of combining everything in one go like this, you could make a temporary variable, right? You could take this expression right here. You could say string word 1 equals this if you want. You could do the same thing for word 2. Up to you, right? So that would be word 2. We're going to do something analogous, right? But you can imagine that our indexing just changes a little bit. For word 2, the second part of this, we're going to want to say we want the first word, first letter, right? So word 0 would be the first word, and again index 0 would be the first character of the first word, and we're going to add that to the rest of the second word. So then we could say words 1, again substring 1, because we want to skip the first letter and just take everything else. We want the icking. So we got the N, right? This gives us the N. This gives us the icking. You can write that out if it's easier. You can say for the first one, words 1, 0 would be P plus ot, right? And then when we combine all this together, as you can imagine, you'll get the result, return word 1 plus. They should be separated by a space, so one way you could do it is like this. So good, we're clear. I just went right for the attempt because the challenge isn't that complicated. But this is one way you could format it. You could also use this handy thing I do a lot. Here, I'll just do it from scratch. Where you can put the curly braces within your double quotes, and then whatever you put within these curly braces gets evaluated. Instead of the literal text, I could say word 1, leave a space, word 2. And this should also work. Good. And so yeah, if you like this better, if it's easier to go step by step and build the words, that's fine. As you get more comfortable, you may be okay with something like this. Where you don't have to sort of allocate this temporary memory here. And if I type that out right, let's see. Yep, looks good. So yeah, if you want to do it all in one go, that's fine. I don't think it's terrible if you make some temporary variables to sort of build up to your result too. I actually do that sometimes when I find it especially, it especially clears up my intent. You know, most of the time I don't have to do that, but if it makes the code more understandable, I'll entertain that sometimes. So I think that's good there. The other thing I said we'd check out, you can also put in string split if you wanted to see that one. They have some overloads here too. I used the one that just had a single character. Where is it? Char array. Split. Like they used here. I used just the space, a single white space character. So yeah, remember that overloading is the concept in programming where in the same class you have multiple methods with the same name and they differ by their method signatures. And by method signature, that means the parameter list. It wouldn't make sense if you could have two methods with the same parameter list, right? Because when you referenced it in your code, how would the computer know which one to call? So you can't, you have to be unique in your method signature. So you'll notice that some of these look similar, but they have subtle differences. Like this one's a character array, and this one is an individual character. The rest of it's the same, the int32, the string split options. So they are different, just remember that. And that's a useful thing to be aware of, method overloading. It's useful, it's nice that you can have these different kind of tweaks because you might use it in different contexts. Like in our case, we didn't want to specify the number of characters after our split point, or I'm sorry, our substring point. We just wanted everything, and it's nice that we didn't have to provide that value. I mean, we could have calculated it, but it would have been just extra work for us. It was nice that they made an overload where we could just say, hey, give us everything, without having to make that extra calculation. So that's overloading. This is the split page if you want to see it. Does just like you would think it does. They have some good examples here. So I think that's enough said about this challenge. On to submitting, gathering our honor points, and yeah, see what other people did. You can check things out here. Look at this syntax here, right? The 1 ... It very much looks like us with our substring start at position 1 and take the rest. And we kind of think of that in English too, right? When you put ... like etc. kind of take, you know, and so on. You can imagine it taking the rest of the characters. So that's cool, and that's why I say look at these. You might see something like this and go, oh man, what is that? And then you can go look it up and add it to your toolbox. Yeah, but you don't need to watch me look through these. Do that on your own. You can hit me up with questions in the comments. Otherwise, I appreciate the views. I appreciate the likes and subs. I will see you in another video. Thanks for watching.